Before I get into this question, I'd just like to point out how the SAT loves to make you feel uncomfortable, and how they do that is by taking you out of your present day context, by putting in words such as this one, which I'm not even sure how to pronounce, in the Aztec Empire. So don't be scared of that. Just literally pretend like this is just something like X, and then keep doing what you want to do. For this question, this is another word in context question. So if you've been with me for prior videos, you'll know there's two strategies. One, we're going to look at its closest neighbors, in other words, its context. And two, we're going to look for that meaning or synonym that's going to throw in the passage to indicate exactly the definition of the word that you're looking for. One thing that you want to make sure is that you have a good idea of what each of these things represent. If you're less than 80% sure about the definition of any of those words, what you kind of want to do is to just not deal with it. So, for example, let's say we're not quite sure what this word means. So, you can just kind of put a little marking over it to indicate that, hey, we're not quite sure what that means, and work with the rest of your answers. If one of the rest of your answers looks really good, pick it. But if none of these look very good to you, then do not be afraid to pick the question that you kind of crossed over, because just because an answer choice is not a word you're familiar with does not make it the wrong answer. Okay, so let's get into this. If we look at its closest neighbors, we have empire was so on the left side, and cacao and other trade goods on the right side. So because the right neighbor has a comma over here, it doesn't really have what I call an immediate right neighbor. So we're going to focus on the left neighbor here. So if you look at the part of speech over here, we're dealing with adjectives, and with adjectives, you really want to pay attention to the noun that it's supposed to describe. So whatever word is supposed to be the correct answer is supposed to be able to describe the noun. And so the noun here is empire. And if we play our categories game, is empire a person, animal, or thing? So empire is a thing, and a particular kind of thing. So which of these would not really make sense for an empire to do? So can an empire be unobtrusive? Maybe, but this is really a word more reserved for people, as opposed to things like empires. So we might be able to cross that one out. And then on top of that, how can an empire be approximate? That's a strange thing, right? Because approximate deals with quantities, and an empire is not really a quantity. So we're going to cross that one out. Now we're only down to round two, which is great. So you have to be really careful here, because in round two, what you're dealing with is the best answer and an answer that they've put in as almost correct. So you have to be really strict, because these guys are going to be similar, but there's something very different between them. And the other thing to note is there's going to be one that's going to be way more extreme than the other. So there's two things here, and if you think about it, concealed is actually not along a spectrum. Either something is concealed or something is not concealed. So concealed is a lot more extreme than peripheral is. Something can be more peripheral or less peripheral, but to be concealed, you're either concealed or you're not. So here, to be so concealed is not super good. The other evidence that they've thrown in is we have something like only after a long overland journey, and kilometers, hundreds of kilometers. Those things deal with distance as opposed to something being hidden or not hidden, so we're going to go ahead and pick D.